Madam Clerk, next item, please. Thank you very much, staff.
Next item is an exclusive negotiating agreement between the City of Vallejo and Nimitz Group regarding the redevelopment of North Mare Island. The recommendation is to authorize the city manager to execute an ENA between the City of Vallejo and the Nimitz Group, LLC.
Okay. And our presenters are going to be Mr. Gerber. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the Council. I'm pleased to be here tonight to discuss with you an important agreement you authorized us to proceed with May 15th. I'm Ron Gerber, the Economic Development Manager for Vallejo.
Hey, Ron. Is your microphone on?
Yeah, I don't think it's on, Ron. Oh, there we go.
A little closer.
Is better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So just to let you know, I'll be summarizing the agreement that you authorized directed staff on May 15th to negotiate with the Nimitz Group. And after the staff presentation and questions you may have, I just wanted to bring to your attention Dave Finney, one of the principals of the Nimitz Group, is here to make some comments and answer any questions as well. So thank you. As you recall, on May 15th, that was the culmination of a request for qualifications, a solicitation to find a master developer or companies to locate on the 157 acres of city-owned land at North Mare Island. As you're well aware, the 1.2 million square feet of employment-based land use was approved per the specific plan. And the council directed us to go out for a solicitation, and we started that December, and it ended in March. We went through the various concepts we presented to you, and the firm that we selected was the Nimitz Group. And on May 15th, when you authorized us, after selecting, you authorized the staff to negotiate an agreement with them. I just wanted to mention a lot of the hard work that was done from that intervening period of time from May to tonight. And I wanted to thank Dave Finney's team and the hard work they put in working with staff to come to consensus and agreement regarding this important project. I also want to recognize some of the staff that was involved in making this happen so quickly with the relatively challenges for negotiating a large agreement in a short period of time. And I do want to thank not only Aaron Hanford from my staff, but also the city attorney's office that was really helpful working through with staff, but also with legal counsel representing the developer as well. So circling back very quickly to, and I also wanted to mention that we had a good support from Pat O'Keefe of Management Partners in helping bring this to fruition as well. So quickly circling back for the public that may not be aware of why the Nimitz Group was selected unanimously by the council, there was a variety of proposals, 8 proposals, and among those that was the Nimitz Group. The really important aspect of the Nimitz Group was there were several items to it. One is their local involvement and investment. As tenants at Mare Island, they have invested substantial money as tenants, renovating historic buildings, generating well-paying jobs, and creating revenue for the city. So they were locally vested already in Mare Island, proceeding with construction and renovation. And that was an important aspect of their already making a substantial investment in Vallejo and at Mare Island. And that was something that council really noted in May. One of the other aspects of the proposal was something that really differentiated them from all others, and that was they had letters of interest from prospective companies to locate there. This was really significant, and these letters of interest from a variety of users, a film studio campus, winery, and others. This is really important when a city is going in to consider disposition of city-owned land. This is really helpful because up to 75% of the land or allowable building space had prospective tenant interest for companies to locate there and create jobs. So this is really a significant difference compared to others. One of the things that was an aspect of having those letters of interest is that it can really help reduce the risk to the city, far less speculative. And again, we did not ask for letters of interest, but they enclosed them, and that was one of the other reasons that the council was respectful and supported the selection of the Nimitz Group. So one of the things I'm briefly going to do is just quickly run through some of the aspects of the summary of the deal points. And these are the terms and conditions, kind of highlights the key aspects of what we've negotiated. So this is a one-year term before we enter into the phase coming back to you in the upcoming months with actually transitioning from the exclusive negotiating agreement to the hopeful disposition and development agreement to proceed with the project. So there's a one-year term here, and there's some negotiation fees that are being provided by the Nimitz Group. Those fees are $150,000 coming in two phases. Those fees will help essentially cover the opportunity costs for making this property available exclusively to the Nimitz Group and no other developers. And so that's covering the city's risk and the opportunity costs for the exclusivity we're granting, if the council should consider approving tonight, giving them exclusivity. And one of the things that's really important to recognize is that they're putting in good faith money and want to collaborate with the city to proceed with the deal structure. There's also another fee that's involved, and this is kind of a security deposit. It's $60,000 for the initial consulting costs. So that people are aware in the early stages, when the project's coming forward, there's going to be outside consulting services needed by the city from third parties, beginning the planning process, maybe outside legal costs, a variety of peer review engineering firms perhaps. But this provides a deposit to get the project started. We know that these outside third-party costs will exceed this amount. This is just to get the deposit going tonight, so both parties can proceed with the project should the council consider this approving tonight. So the entitlement costs will be paid for by the developer, not the city, and the third-party consulting costs paid by the developer. One of the other aspects I wanted just to cover that to close in the body of the agreement, it embodies the concept that was put forward in their proposal with the various tenant mix that they're proposing. The film studio, wine production, sales office, mixed-use office and retail, and a community park. So going through the upcoming months, there's a number of milestones during 2018. And a lot of the heavy lifting is being done by the developer in this early stage so that we can work with them and we can proceed towards actually construction and development. So in this pre-development phase, the developer will be investing a lot of their funds, creating an infrastructure, architectural design team, putting together concept plans and putting together financing for the infrastructure. The appraisal process will begin during this year as well. As we go through the rest of the year, early next year, in 2019, there's some milestones. In the first quarter, and these are some significant milestones, the developer will be spending time and money with their infrastructure, their engineering, and their architecture team, putting together the concept plans. This is an important milestone because the concept plans is actually what leads to the project application to get the CEQA going. And then all the entitlement and CEQA process begins. There's also a lot of transparency involved in this development of this project. There's going to be community meetings required, planning commission workshops, and regular updates to the city from the developer so everybody can keep apprised of the progress occurring. And then in the second quarter, there'll be economic impact studies, the appraisal process continues, and of the 157 acres, there's just over 30 acres of land that the Navy still retains, which we expect to get transferred by the end of the year. The reason that it hasn't been transferred to the city yet is because there's some final touches that need to occur on the remediation plan. The city and Navy have been working in good faith to work with the state oversight of State Cal EPA called the Department of Toxic Substance Control, get the final sign-off for the remediation so the transfer can occur to the city and then ultimately conveyed to the developer. And then as we go on toward the summer, the secret review will go to the Planning Commission. We'll begin negotiating the DDA, or Development Disposition Agreement. And then at the end of 2019, or August 2019, as the exclusive negotiating expires, we'll be coming back to council, and before then as well, to bring forward the Development and Disposition Agreement to the council. So the recommendation for you tonight is to authorize the city manager to execute an exclusive negotiating agreement between the City of Vallejo and the Nimitz Corporation. And I'm happy to answer any questions or hear comments from the council as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gerber. Before I entertain comments, questions from council, I do have one speaker's card. And Carr. Ms. Carr, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Ann Cargan. I just want to say I'm so excited. So I know that this is not a done deal yet. We're just signing up to go study or something, whatever the analogy is. But I'm really excited about this, and I wanted to make a point of getting up here and saying that because although I am on the board of Fresh Air Vallejo and I am vehemently opposed to putting a toxic cement plant on the waterfront, that does not mean I'm opposed to all business, nor does it mean my colleagues are opposed to all business, and I can say that I know no one who is opposed to this. We're all thrilled and excited. Now, I realize that we have to go through the whole process, and, you know, it's the private sector and things happen. I understand why we went, through with Faraday, et cetera. I will say that I'm thrilled at seeing Vallejo really be very deliberate and about soliciting competitive bids. I'm very excited to see that this one really fits with our new general plan, and I think there's a lot of synergy there. One thing I will say, tying back to the earlier presentation tonight on economic development, is that tourism had been one of the legs that Vallejo had used to look at for economic development. I don't know if that's still part of the overall plan or not. I do think it's an important thing to look at, and I think that ties in with some of the business plans for this, so that we shouldn't forget that. We're right midstream of huge rivers of tourists that go to San Francisco and the wine country, and I think we should look at plucking a few grapes from that, whatever, I'm mixing metaphors, but I think we should take advantage of that position. And this is compatible with that. One thing I will say is I hope that as we go through these processes, we become, as a city, a learning organization. So if there was anything we needed to walk away from the Faraday deal, that we apply that here. If there's feedback in terms of how these applicants are running into problems, that we learn those lessons, and in particular, we look simultaneously at how we simplify our processes and have competitive fees for small businesses as part of this whole thing. This organization, the Nimitz Group, is going to need to have some small tenants as well as their anchor tenants, and we all need to remember that small businesses generate something like 70 or 80% of all new jobs. I can't remember the exact statistic. It's the majority. But at any rate, I'm thrilled to death about this. I'm not speaking for Fresh Air Vallejo, but I do know that all of my colleagues agree, and we're excited to see the possibility of sustainable, compatible, and appropriate development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I take comments, questions from council, Mr. Finney is in the audience. Mr. Finney, would you like to address the council? I generally don't do that, but seems appropriate.
Well, I can't say no. Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for being here. Mayor Bob, City Council, staff, Ron, Patrick, Aaron, everybody's been great, Greg. It's a little bit, I think I might have said this last time, but it's a little bit like the Twilight Zone for me, coming from a county that I won't actually name, where we don't have sort of a shared vision and a understanding we're trying to do the best thing for the given community. So to come down here, every time I come down here, it's just a breath of fresh air, so I can't thank you enough. and being able to negotiate very easily, the right to negotiate, and not having a bunch of conflicts with that, to me, just lays the groundwork for hopefully a 6 months, a year from now, we're showing everybody some pretty amazing renderings of what we think we can do here, and so I just can't thank everybody enough. And I don't get involved too much in the negotiating, except at sort of the 40,000-foot level, because it's not really what I enjoy. As I like to say, I just want to get back to work. So hopefully we can get this done and get these milestones done. And something that I do want to reiterate that I've said all along, and I've given my word to Greg and Bob, is that we are completely transparent. And if during the process anybody has any questions, one of three things will happen. You'll call me or you'll get a hold of me, and that includes anybody, and we're just right across the causeway. And you'll ask a question, and we'll give you an answer that you like. You'll ask a question, and we may agree to disagree, but we'll have a respectful conversation, and I might change your mind or you might change my mind. But you'll ask me a question, and I won't know the answer, and I'll tell you that I don't know the answer, but I will get back to you. But at no time will you not know where we stand and exactly what we're doing. Because a long time ago, someone taught me that in the absence of communication, people fear the worst, and we don't want to do that. We want to be completely transparent at all times. So, as I said, I just look forward to getting back to work. So, thank you again.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Finney. Okay, comments, questions from council. I'll start with Councilmember Sunga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last time we discussed this and approved it, I think the mayor said it also, and I said it, we want to see if you can approach EPS to be part of the process. Has that been done? Mr. Feeney, I think you get.
Yeah, I'll defer to the Nimitz Group.
I think Mr. Feeney has a...
Yes, so I spoke with John Rivera, is that? Riley, pardon me, earlier today, and we have a meeting set up with myself, John, and Victor for the 31st of this month.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, and just looking at the term of the contracts and learning from our previous experience on this North Mare Island, I'm wondering why we are not asking for a security deposit on this negotiation.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have several deposits here. One is cash that they have to provide $150,000 in two separate payments. The initial $50,000, later $100,000, which gives them the right for the agreement, but is essentially it's a negotiation fee. So that is a deposit that they're giving related to the deal. The other deposit they're giving is the initial deposit towards paying for the city's entitlement costs. So we do have deposits locked in on a couple of fronts. One is the real estate, kind of almost like an option payment to the city, and the other deposit begins the process for them to pay for the city's entitlement costs.
So the option payment is not in here.
What's that?
The option payment that you talk about is not.
Yeah, it is. We don't use the term option payment because this is more of a public real estate agreement, and so we call it a deposit agreement.
Yeah. So the 150,000 is something that they can spend along the line, right?
No, that's the city's money.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering about. We have negotiations, ERNs before that puts $1 million security deposit. I think Faraday did that, or the one before.
I don't recall us
There is one,
taking that amount for Faraday.
or maybe it is Studio.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what the normal security deposit on this type of big business. We have 22 million square feet of.
Yeah, the value of a deposit is going to vary on the transaction, the level of risk, the amount ahead. So, for example, if this was a major owner-user corporation, The land was ready almost to close escrow except for entitlements, and there was no issues related to the infrastructure. As we know, Mare Island is not kind of a turnkey pad ready to build. And so the level of risk involved and the amount of investment up front are some of the things were discussed early in the stages. Because as the Nimitz Group's proceeding, they're going to be investing substantial money on the infrastructure analysis. They'll be investing substantial money on the quality of infrastructure design, infrastructure financing. So those have really important dollar values, and they, under the milestones, they have to proceed with that in order to continue the agreement. So there's substantial value that the developer is putting in, and if for some reason they walk or the deal doesn't proceed, all the money they've put into all that time and effort, the city we would keep all those documents as well.
Yeah.
So there's a substantial value that they're putting in over the next few months.
Yeah, personally, I'm concerned with that, the small amount, but I also trust what Mr. Finney said earlier, and I'll go along with staff's recommendation. And Mr. Finney, thank you very much when you spoke earlier. I just think that from the beginning, I thought this is a very small amount for a big property for the security deposit. But when you spoke earlier about being transparent and be upfront with staff and council, I changed my mind, sir. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir, go ahead.
May I just add to that? I mean, a great question. And one of the things we talked about very early on with Mr. Finney and the group was making sure we come back to this city council and to the community with some regular updates so that this doesn't wait 12 months and all of a sudden we say, we knew this wasn't going to work 6 months ago. So I appreciate you're right. Your words about transparency are the exact reasons that we had this conversation about what that deposit looks like, and they've committed to it, we've committed to it. I think Dave talked about it tonight. He said, look, we're going to be transparent with that process. And they understand that's my expectation from them, is that we are going to be communicating what the status of this is, and I do believe that we'll be in close communications as far as if we hit some hurdles. We're going to be right up front with the community, with you, to say there's a hurdle here, we need to deal with it. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nyoff. Councilmember DuCosta.
Thank you, Mayor Sampayan. Appreciate that. Yes, it's on, I think. Yes. I appreciate the non-refundable deposits, the $150,000. I appreciate the applicant and staff hearing my comments and concerns in regards to that at the last meeting when we discussed this. I saw in the report that as that $60,000 begins to become depleted, there is provisions in there to refill that as we expect more expenses to come in. So that's great to see those safety provisions in the contract. I had a question on the economic impact analysis. So I always equate this, I try to equate this to my real estate business. So, for example, one time I had a seller that obtained their own roof inspection, and it said it only needed $600 in repairs, and the buyer had a roof inspection that said it needed full replacement at a cost of $20,000. The buyer's agent didn't know the company we had used. I didn't know the company they had used. We came to an agreement to use a company we both knew and trusted, and it ended up being somewhere in the middle. So I'm trying to avoid all of that delay and distrust. Who or will there be an agreement between parties in advance on who will be doing the economic impact analysis?
Yeah, we have a variety of firms available at our disposal. The council some weeks ago authorized us to work with several different economic consulting firms that specialize in this matter. So we have what we think are some of the best practitioners in California that are knowledgeable and experienced in doing this detailed work. And because that's part of the economic feasibility, economic impact, some of those items in there that relate to the cost of the infrastructure, like you mentioned, instead of roofing, may be the cost for a water and sewer line. And
Right.
they'll say, what are these costs? We have provisions in there under the third-party consultant, so we can have it peer-reviewed by firms quickly if there's any area of disagreement.
Okay. I just, so I just wanted to make sure that, for example, there was an applicant in the past that had an economic impact analysis done, and we had a peer review that poked holes in it, but we didn't have an actual economic impact analysis that we could all agree was accurate. And so I don't want that to occur here. And so I just want to make sure that the company that does it, both parties are in agreement that we believe that they are a reputable, solid, well-respected, and thorough firm. Okay, and then, I'm very excited about this project. I have not, I'm a member of the Solano Economic Development Corporation Board, so we talk about projects countywide all the time, and I haven't heard of another project where they came to the door with 75% of the project with letters of interest. So that really kind of sealed the deal for me. Beyond the very exciting vision of the entire project, to know that there's that, strength to what they're proposing, that there's already, more than just the one vision, there's a bunch of entities that are behind that vision and wanting to work hard to make it come to fruition. So I just want to make sure that we are paying attention to the parties that wrote those letters, and because economies change, markets change. I want to make sure that, 5 years down the road, it's like, wait, why isn't anything being constructed? Oh, what happened to all those letters of interest? So I think it's important that we stay in touch with all of those parties as well and make sure that everything is going smoothly on that front. And in terms of timelines, I do think that it's important. I mean, even if it's just like milestone reached and email blasted out to everyone saying, okay, this email or this milestone's been reached, so that we know along the way things are happening. And it doesn't have to be a long, detailed report on what's going on, just, first milestone reached, second milestone reached, that kind of thing. And I think I read in the report the appraisal happens in January. Is that accurate?
That's when it begins.
That's when it begins. How long does it expect it to take?
Well, it has. I think there's a timeline in it before it gets to the DDA, because that's going to be part of the
there was a
price and terms aspect to it.
Okay.
And because it's hard to put, it's not unlike taking a small parcel of land,
Right.
45 to 60 days. Because there's going to be a lot of special conditions related to the appraised value, especially especially items like the infrastructure costs and the soil conditions. So that's why it takes a little bit longer, because we have to factor in some of those aspects that impact the value related to the infrastructure and other special conditions.
Does the cost of the appraisal come out of the $60,000?
It may be expended by then, so to be replenished.
Okay. Yeah. And what is the cost estimated of the appraisal?
I'll have to use the term "that depends," because a lot of the special conditions that will have to be incorporated, we'll be working with with the city attorney's office on crafting the instructions. And the instructions of the appraisal have to reflect those special conditions. And that's what takes a little time, and we don't know the engineering and peer review costs yet. So other than the appraiser itself, following the instructions of what it's going to take to analyze the special conditions extends the time a bit. And we won't know the special conditions until the infrastructure team is assembled and helping put those costs in there.
Okay. Just as a side note, I think what's been most frustrating for me with North Mare Island and other parts of the city is that, we get these applicants, we have these geotechnical studies done, and it's like, okay, now we know what that looks like. That's great. We can give that to the next person. And then the next person comes and they're like, we have to do all these geotechnical studies. It's like, what happened to all those?
Yeah.
So just curious if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great question. One of the things that we did during the RFQ process, we took some of the more important aspects, like on the soil conditions, and we had a constraints and opportunities analysis done to provide that kind of initial analysis, plus all of the other studies are going to be, that already are available to their infrastructure team. So that's a lot less work and a lot less expenses that will have to be incurred by the developers. It'll move that portion relative quicker than other circumstances. And then when that really gets fine-tuned is as they're plotting the 6 to 8 or 9 buildings there, and that's when we'll get into those kind of more site cost details.
Okay, that's helpful. And then I really appreciate the thoroughness and the diligence and the care that is being taken as evidenced by the staff report and the contract that was provided to us this evening. But I know the question I'm going to get when I am out at community events and reporting to different community organizations. So when will we see construction? So I know that's probably years down the road, but best case scenario.
I think we'll have to, of course, as the developer works through with the companies, we would hope to see, well, we could talk to them, but typically these kind of scenarios where you're not doing high-rise buildings, 3-ish years plus or minus, wouldn't be unreasonable, 3 to 4 years.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misspeaking.
Yeah, and as you noted, having those letters of interest from tenants is really helpful to meet that kind of
Absolutely.
schedule.
Well, and that's why I'm just saying we need to seize the momentum on that because, economies do change and market demand changes. So having that interest right now and just really running with that as fast as we can. But I do recognize the complications involved in that piece of land and developing it. So like I said, I do appreciate the thoroughness and diligence that is being taken by the developer.
And the site work will start before building construction.
Right.
And one of the things to note in queuing this project up in the pre-development stage to get it ready, Will Murat has been doing a great job taking that HUD money, finalizing the deal, and actually for demolition of the city's buildings to help get this project, the site prepared for the developer, and the abatement inside the buildings is already occurring to get ready for demolition.
When will we start seeing demolition again?
Is Will still here?
They're out there right now.
Yeah, doing the abatement.
Doing abatement,
Yeah.
right, but when will we start
Oh.
seeing demolition?
They've come down, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a 60-day working contract, and they started a couple of weeks ago. I think we'll see actually buildings coming down probably before September, would be my guess.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
Greg had it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Nyoff.
those are really good questions, because even sometimes you do an economic development update today, right, and you're like, wow, look at 12 projects, and look at all these, but dirt won't move. The earth isn't going to start, we're not going to see buildings going up everywhere, because it's the one thing that kind of surprised me moving to California 10 years ago from Colorado, Michigan, how long it takes to get through the process of CEQA, all the environmental quality issues and all of those, that it takes a long time to get from today to when you're actually ready to do the construction. So it's like patience, everybody. It's going to happen. And I think what you'll see is, I would say this about Mr. Finney and the Nimitz Group, is just pay attention to Savage and Cook. I happened to drive by there the other day, or met Nate, and there's work going on in that current building, and there's other buildings, which is why this is kind of exciting, is because investment's already been made. They're already putting money into other projects, and so go look a little farther into where they're actually doing projects. But we'll get there. But I hear you loud and clear. You don't want to get the community too excited, and then a year later there's still nothing.
Right, exactly. I mean, I get it all the time with Solano 360. We approved that plan, and what now? And so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's turn on my light. So thank you. I'm also incredibly excited. I must echo Ms. Carr's comments. This is a really great fit for our city, and so I think we're really anticipating what's going to be happening. of course, we are getting a lot of questions from the community, and I appreciate the transparency. We've had a lot of fits and starts on North Mare Island. We've had all kinds of crazy projects in the 18 years I've lived here that have might have had some promise, but things fell through, and some were just crazy, and some were frauds. So we've had it all. If we remember the Lucas films, that the proponent of that particular project is in jail. Excuse me, she's in jail, but we got money. We never actually invested anything, which was good for us. So that's why, it's 157 acres, very important to our community, very important to our future. And so we have a lot of hope in those acres. And so the fact that the vision that's being proposed is very similar to what I think we all want in the Vallejo is very exciting. This is an exclusive negotiating agreement, and so that's when everything happens. I know it's going to be iterative process because there's lots of unknowns, as we know. What we know is there's a lot of unknowns. But so as we move forward and we get towards getting a DDA together, and this is just for us, it doesn't have anything to do with the developers, but just making sure that there's performance measures that are incorporated. I can't say what they might be because that's all in the discussion, but we want to make sure that, if we're investing time and energy into these acres, and also the developer probably, you guys want to see that too, that we make sure that we all understand these are the milestones, especially after we get into the DDA, and this time now will be those discussions about what that might look like. And I just want to put this out there. I don't know if this is a possibility or not. There's been a lot of discussion about why would we sell the property, and if there's any way to consider any other kind of structure, and I don't want this to be a deal breaker, but a consideration about land leases or other structures that might give the city some long-term, not control over the land, but just a little more investment in the land or ownership in the land. So that's incredibly important, I think, for the community. And like I said, if it's a deal breaker, then I think we'd have to go another way. So you were talking about the intellectual property. So we had Fair Day, and they did all that soil testing. And so that's helping this particular project. We have that information, and that we're incorporating that into it. So at the end of 2019, August 2019, and we end up not coming into an agreement, we would own the intellectual property that's coming out of these negotiations. Is that okay? So I think, it's a long-term process. It's been a long time. I think now we're really starting to see the movement. And so this next year is exciting, but it's important to just continue to be transparent and bring stuff back to us. And so I appreciate that. And I think that's all of my comments. And again, the performance measures, very important, because once we get into the DDA phase, we want to make sure that the land doesn't sit there and not do anything. We've seen that, like Councilmember DuCosta mentioned, the Solana 360, there's just nothing happening. There's been deals coming and going for years, and we still don't know what's happening there. So just make sure there's performance measures or ways to move things along. If you just never know when what might come up in the future. So anyway, a little vague, but I know it isn't a time to negotiate, and not a time for any particular specifics right now. So anyway, I appreciate all your efforts, and I'm very excited again. So excited. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a few real quick comments, Ron. First and foremost, I appreciate the amount of effort staff has put into this. We've had a lot of false starts, as I've said time and time again, and those false starts have really hurt the credibility of our city and City Hall. They weren't our fault because of things that happened within the economy, untruthfulness on the parts of some, and as we all know, things change. But I think we've gone about this the right way. The fact that you and the Nimitz Group have really come to the table to talk about finances, to talk about structure, to talk about timelines and milestones, those are huge. I am one that wants to keep those timelines and milestones at the forefront. I remember many a meeting with Faraday where we were told, well, in this amount of time, we're going to see this. When this amount of time, this is going to happen. And I believe Councilmember DuCosta and I were in some of those meetings together, and we didn't see them happen. And it was very, very disappointing. But what I'm seeing with Nimitz is a commitment to move their project forward. They've demonstrated that with what they have done on Mare Island now, on the Wet Mile. So that in itself is exciting. I've had the chance to talk with Mr. Finney about some of his visions, and I'm excited to say that with a little bit of hope, we're going to move those forward. They're very exciting. So the reporting back is huge. Timelines, milestones. And I want to make sure that those timelines and milestones are workable. I just don't want to throw a bunch of stuff out there and hope it sticks to the wall and say that's what you got to follow. Let's make sure they're workable. Reporting back. Mr. Nyoff mentioned it, that, gosh, 6 months from now something happens, we have a hiccup, and it's 6 more months before we hear the hiccup. I am just absolutely adamant that if we have a hiccup, we need to hear about it. We need to know what's going on, because we need to let the city know what's going on, our residents know what's going on, and that we are working towards repairing whatever that is. Another thing that I would like to see is Nimitz Group opening an office on Mare Island. That we have space available out there, city-owned property that's out there. We have the mansions on Commandant Row. Mr. Sheaf is in the back. They have property there where Nimitz could rent, move into, and hang their shingle so that they are represented here in our community. Community outreach. I would like to see a community outreach person from Nimitz. Somebody that goes out and talks to neighborhood groups, that talks to neighborhood associations, that visits members of our community at their request to say, this is what we're doing, this is where we're moving to, this is our vision, and this is what we're doing for Vallejo. It's important to me that we have that positive interaction with our residents, because if we don't, it's just another business that's coming to town. And you increase your credibility with our community by doing that. Local employment. My hope is that we use local for builds, for staffing, for whatever it is that you put on North Mare Island, that we can say we are employing X amount of local talent. We have a lot of good people in this town, and they are well-deserving of jobs that you have to offer. Mr. Finney, I'm glad you're talking with Victor over at EPS. That is very important to me. He has been there a long time. He has a a world-known product, worldwide known product. And for us to slam the door in his face would be a travesty. So I'm very glad that you are talking with him. My colleagues have mentioned everything from the safety provisions to non-refundable deposits, staying in touch with the small businesses. That's very important. I hope that we, Ron, us, as well as Nimitz Group, stays in touch with these other businesses that want to come to this campus, to work with them to say, hey, we haven't forgotten you. This is where we are, and we are working with the developer to move things forward and to keep them in the timeline, keep them in the loop so they know what's going on. And you've answered the question regarding infrastructure from the proprietary information we got from Faraday. Is that even valid anymore, or did it like close and no longer valid after X amount of time?
No, I mean, they did certain soil tests and engineering studies that
Okay.
are valid.
Okay, great. So that we share that with the Nimitz Group. I want to echo what my colleagues are saying here on the dais, that this is an exciting time. This is an exciting project. I am hoping that it moves forward. Mr. Finney, after your wife said no, he's not going to build it in the next 2 months because he has to be home too, I get it. I get it, but I understand your enthusiasm, sir. I'm excited to, when we break dirt, I'm excited to be out there the day we break ground with this council, that the 7 of us are there with our shovels and hard hats throwing dirt at you. It is going to be absolutely an exciting day for the city of Vallejo. Thank you. Okay, with that, no other comments, questions? What is the pleasure of council?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to offer that we authorize the city manager to execute an exclusive negotiating agreement with the City of Vallejo and the Nimitz Group, LLC.
Okay, and a voice vote, please. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Gerber and Nimitz Group. Thank you. Okay, we are going to take 5, if you don't mind, please. It's